Welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport, Monday morning. How are you, James?
Yeah, good, Luke. Just having some more humble pie this morning, all day yesterday as well, after my thoughts on the Manchester derby. But there you go. Couldn't read a game more wrong if I tried. Yourself?
Tired. Always feel tired at the moment. Never ending. But let's crack on. Obviously, a couple of things to note. One is what we're going to do is split the podcasts into two. So one is just going to be for football, and then one is going to be other sports. The football one's going to be recorded on a Monday morning. The other sports one will be a Monday evening. I think what we learned last week was that the podcast just was too long, and we don't want to rush things too much if possible. We also have plenty of thoughts on various things, and so we're going to just try a slightly different format and see how that goes. So let's look at the weekend football. Obviously, Arsenal are now 7 points clear. They drew 0-0 away at Nottingham Forest. Manchester City lost 2-0 at Manchester United, and Villa lost 1-0 against Everton. What did you get to see this weekend, James?
I saw the Manchester derby, which was just how bad were Man City? Yeah, Man United were good. Didn't see the Arsenal game. I was out with a couple of friends down in Farnham Way. I've seen the highlights of it. And then I saw 65 minutes up to the Everton goal of the Villa game yesterday. One of those games, I think, yesterday with the Villa. Another injury, obviously. But yeah, going back to the Manchester derby. Wow. I mean, yeah, the players knew what they were doing with Man. The formation changes helped. It was a 4-2-3-1. They played Mbeumo up front, which was an interesting call by Carrick. Diallo off the right, Dorg off the left, and Bruno back in his position as a 10. That is his best position. Mainly back in from the cold as well. They ran riot. That game could have been anything they wanted to. Man City was so ponderous, so slow. I didn't like how they didn't play Riley left back. Ake played. And the two centre-backs, lads, Kusanov and Max Elaine, after looking really impressive in the week, were just like caught in rabbit in headlights kind of thing. They were just poor. Rodri had his worst game for a long time. And Guardiola's tactics were just, especially the back line, were just so high up the pitch. I mean, Barnett, they could have scored 3 or 4 in the first half. A couple of offside goals, not given. Donnarumma had a couple of great saves. Could have been a 4 or 5-0. Took Haaland off. It was a very bad day at the office for Pep Guardiola there. It was a shocker, to be honest. But fair play to Man United boys. Gets them up to, 6th or 7th in the league now. Confidence is high probably there after that result.
I think what it highlights is just how difficult it is. I mean, obviously, you came on talking about humble pie, but I don't think anyone could have envisaged what sort of transpired. It's, it is difficult at times to work out how these games are going to go. And I always say it as well. I mean, the margins in these games are so fine in terms of, if Darlow gets sent off, as he should have been, that's a completely different game. We have a completely different outcome, and the stories are, very different. I think the one thing I would say about that Manchester United win is it wasn't a case of just taking their chances. They absolutely battered them, and it's going to be interesting. It's one thing having everything aligned for 1 week and one game, which you're massively up for. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next few weeks, to see whether it is actually the start of something, seriously impressive, or whether we're going to see a United back struggling to be a top 6 team.
Well, hopefully they continue and they give Carrick the full-time job. That'd be my takeaway as a non-Man United fan. Yeah, Dallo should have been sent off. I don't understand how VAR, the referee, whoever's in that VAR room, they said it wasn't forceful enough. Horseshit. It's a straight red card. It's nonsense. And as you say, that changes the game completely and the mindset there. Mark Gay's obviously in Manchester doing a medical now, probably signing terms, £20 million, 300 grand a week, 5.5-year contract. Do the maths. It's £100 million transfer for a lad that's not even going to be first choice when Diaz and Guardiola are back. I know that Stones is probably going to leave in the summer, and I know that Kuznov isn't. He's a backup at the moment. Max Alain's a youngster. But even Mark Gay in that on Saturday would have made no difference. That high line, I've talked about it on this pod and off the pod regarding him. I think he'll struggle there. He's going to get a rude awakening when he has to play so high up that he's never used to. No defensive midfielder really, because Rodri's not back up to speed at all at the moment. They looked a shell of the player he was on Saturday. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he performs. I think he's a good player. He's a leader, English quota. But I think there's much better players you could get. And look at City, what they've done in the last 12 months under Guardiola. How much money they've spent there. It's £400 million. This time last year, they bought Mamouche, Kuznov, and a Diaz lad who's on loan at Girona. I think he's on loan now for the best part of £120 million. And then they're just going to replace him straight away with Semenyo and Mark Gay. Along with who else they bought in the last, Cherky, etc., Donnarumma, Trafford. It's ridiculous how much money they've spent and how bad they actually are at the moment.
I think the problem with something like the Gahey deal, and I mean, you say, oh, it's easy to find someone else, better value. But the problem is if you're paying, so look at someone like Chelsea. So Chelsea are being linked with a lad called Jacquet, some 20-year-old lad from Rennes. But you're talking a £60 million transfer fee there. So for a completely unproven in the Premier League player, that whole deal will be probably bigger than Gahey's. Okay. One thing about Gahey is he is Premier League ready. He should be able to slot into that team. Whether obviously tactically it will be a tough transition for him, but you would like to think that it shouldn't take too long for him to be able to come in and get up to speed. Whereas what Chelsea are doing, and it's not easy to buy top class centre backs and get any change when you add in all the wages out of 100 million these days.
No, especially in January. I just don't rate him as highly as everyone else does. He's totally unproven at the top level. International football is not top level football. We know that. They play Mickey Mouse League One teams. He's played in the Conference League. He's not even played in the Europa League, Champions League. Obviously, he can't play next couple of games, probably get registered, but they'll probably have to deregister some players to get him and Semenyo to play. I'll be interested to see how he does. He's totally unproven in this way, playing in a 4, playing with no protection, 25 yards higher up the pitch. And he's only 6 foot, by the way. So he's not a tall centre-back. His win percentage, head rate isn't great either. So, look, I like him, but I don't think he's first choice at City when the other two are back fit. Unless they play him right back.
So, I mean, it does raise a couple of interesting points. One is players like Gahey making the move to City. So, in terms of playing time. So, he will obviously get lots of playing time in the next couple of months. I'm slightly surprised, and the same applies to Semenyo in some regards, is I'm surprised some of these players are so willing to move to these big teams to potentially, yes, they'll contend for trophies and everything else, but it's very easy to be sat on the bench for extended periods of time. We talked about it with likes of Eze, Madueke, all these players who, if they were playing one rung below your cities of the world, they're the star players in these teams. Teams like your Villas and Newcastle's and teams like that. I think these players have to be a little bit careful as to what it is they actually want, because you could easily see Gahey, as you say, not be first choice at City, and then you're hardly playing a meaningful game all season if there's no injuries.
Yeah, and potentially a new manager in the summer.
So the other thing I would say, we've touched on before with Pep, is he went through this period in sort of December, early January, where he wasn't rotating players. They look knackered, and they've now got injuries. This nonsense of the likes of Haaland playing against Exeter. We talked about it. Rodri played, half against Exeter. All these yes, I realise he has to try and get back up to speed, but I do think some of the problems that they have, come back to Guardiola and he was just unwilling to actually use this squad he's put together at hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah, they look, leggy is the word, isn't it?
Let's talk about Arsenal Forest. I realised you didn't see it. I did watch it. It's one of these games where you look at the stats back and, Arsenal will have, +2 XG, and you look at it and think they were slightly unfortunate not to win it. Again, it was a pretty underwhelming performance. I don't think the way the game sort of went, it wasn't a game you watched and you thought, oh, Arsenal are battering Forest. There just wasn't huge amounts in that game for large parts of it. Yes, Martinelli missed a decent chance in that first half. Yes, Sells made a really good save from a Saka header in the second half. There just wasn't huge.
There wasn't massive big chances.
Yeah. It wasn't a dominant Arsenal performance. They're always going to get bits and pieces from set pieces. I think they're pretty unlucky not to get a penalty for the Aina handball. I don't know what Aina was even beginning to think. But again, it also comes back to part of the problem with, the handball rule. I've got no idea what is a handball.
No.
So,
but 1 week that could be given. That's the thing. That's the frustrating things as fans. We get annoyed with 1 week. A referee will give that, and you'll be like, "Well, hang on a minute. What about this one here?" So that's the annoyance of VAR. You don't actually know which way they're going to go, which way the side of the bed they're going to get out of, and go. Can you imagine that last day of the season, title decider or relegation?
Yeah, but
decider.
We even had it with Villa last year with the Rodgers decision at Man United, right? It was a terrible refereeing decision.
Oh yeah. The last game of the season.
These things happen all the time. I think what I would say is I have to thank Arteta for giving the rest of the league a chance by continuing to start Gyökeres. I was having an interesting conversation with a friend about this, and I just wonder at what point a lot of him still being in the team is ego-driven. And what I mean by that is Arteta clearly had a say in him coming into the club. He would have had the say as to which of the strikers that Arsenal picked. And it obviously doesn't reflect well on sort of his judgment. And there's a tricky balance in terms of not wanting to destroy any confidence Gyökeres has left. But at this point, given how poor he's been, it does feel like it's almost ego-driven, trying to prove a point that there is a player in there. It looks abysmal. But what you saw again with Arsenal is that they didn't really look like conceding. And if you don't lose games in the position they're in, I think they're going to win this title by double figures probably.
Yeah, they're just the best of a bad bunch. It's 7 points clear. Man City look like they're all over the shop at times. I just want to see more from Arsenal, but I don't think the way they're set up, you can see more unless he takes that handbrake off, but he won't. He's don't lose first and then try and nick a goal, score the first goal from a set piece whenever they do, and then try and say to the opposition, come and break us down and we'll try and counter-attack you and we'll take our chances as and when we get them. He really should have gone to Forest there and win that game, really. Because then it's, 9 points, and it's kind of over 9 points at this stage of the season, 21 games in. It's a long way back.
I'll take a lot of convincing that Odegaard is the best option for them.
Why do you say that?
I just don't think he's touched the heights of 2 years ago. I think he isn't helping this team particularly from an offensive point of view.
It's weird because I want to see him in the last couple of times. He's not actually playing in midfield. He's almost playing as alongside Gyökeres up front kind of thing, and doing an awful lot of aimless running kind of thing, running around. Is that because Gyökeres' limitations as a presser? I don't know. I said it before though. Who do you play? Do you play Eze? But Eze plays slightly on the left-hand side to Odegaard, who plays slightly off the right-hand side. Because Rice plays that left-hand side 8 role. So yeah, they've got a decision. They're not going to drop Odegaard. He's their captain. It's like this, as he's talked about with Gyökeres and the ego from Arteta. He just, you're right. He hasn't hit the heights. Whether the injuries are caught up with him, that ankle injury playing through it as well. Yeah. Saka, again, no goal in open player game. What's that? About 2 or 3 in the last 14 months or something.
He still contributes in other ways. He opens up so much other stuff for them. Obviously, dreadful result for Villa yesterday. Lost 1-0 against Everton. I think it's just one of those games where everything that could go wrong did. The injury to McGinn, we'll have to wait and see how serious it is. But having started the game quite well, Villa.
What? You nearly conceded after 12 seconds.
Well, obviously, aside from the 12 seconds, yeah. But they actually settled down. Actually, were playing some nice stuff, and then completely lost all shape. Any of your favourite word, momentum. The rest of the half was a bit of a shambles, to be honest. And
they got a VAR decision right, by the way. Well, hey, it's clearly offside.
Well, he's clearly interfering. I don't think you can have a player who's a yard away, trying to compete for a ball, and him not be interfering.
So, again, on that point, Luke. So I wasn't listening without commentary because I can't stand listening to some commentators, most of them. So I turn it on, obviously. Chris Sutton's going here in Sky in the UK, going, that's harsh for Everton. I'm like, what are you watching? Seriously, what are you watching the game? It's just one. You don't understand the game, which he clearly should do, or 2, it's just bias. It's just like, I want Everton to win kind of thing, because I think it's Armstrong, isn't it? Something like that, the Everton man.
Armstrong,
He's clearly a yard offside, and he interferes in the defender, so it wasn't a hard decision to make. He got the right decision in the end.
So we obviously had the fairly ridiculous situation with Garner and Rodgers. It's amazing how these things keep happening. This is why, in some respects, if you want to look at VAR and how it should be used, I'm definitely not adverse to second yellow cards being looked at, because you can't look at that foul on Rodgers. It's a 2-handed push. It's intentional to stop, a player, about to enter the penalty box. It's a clear foul, and I think the referee knows that if he gives the foul, he's going to have to send him off probably. And I just don't know how. It was a bit like the Marino one. The problem is with these decisions is PGMOL will come out and say, oh, yes, it should have been a second yellow card. He should have been sent off. And it doesn't help anyone. You're just acknowledging another mistake.
I did hear some stupid comment saying, great to keep 11 players on the pitch for Everton to make it a fair game. It had been a harsh. Hang on a minute here. We're not playing we're playing top level sport where these decisions cost multi-million pounds because of 10 men and things like this. Yeah, it's
annoying as well, in that obviously a minute later they go up the other end and score after some of the more shambolic defending and goalkeeping you'll ever see. What I would say, it was a great finish from Barry, but the rest, it was a shambles. One thing I would say about that game is the overreaction from the Villa fans. Yes, it's obviously a big chance missed, but the overreaction is absolutely pathetic. The number, I've posted on Twitter over the years, and it tends to be something along the lines of 6 monthly reminder that football fans are complete morons. And it tends to be, things like Emery has to be sacked, or, Villa in full-blown crisis. And you only have to read, every single player is suddenly a scapegoat, whether it be obviously Martinez, whether suddenly Pau Torres shouldn't have started ahead of Lindelof. Torres was brilliant before his injury, but no, Pau clearly shouldn't have started. Lindelof should have. And you could go through the whole team. Everyone's obviously getting criticised. The board has been criticised despite having got us into this having helped get us into the situation in terms of transfers and everything else. And football fans are just so ridiculous in their expectations. It's difficult to win football matches at this level. Plenty of things can go wrong. Plenty of things went wrong yesterday for Villa. They had the McGinn injury. Gesson hit the bar. They've had loads of blocked shots from Rodgers. Rodgers had a bit of an off day shooting. Villa could easily have won that game. Obviously, the missed sending off. It's difficult to win football games. Football fans' reactions are absolutely ridiculous. And it was the same fans who were slating Villa's transfer window 18 months ago. Oh, Onana's terrible. Matson's terrible. It just drives me absolutely crazy. It's just so annoying.
Yeah, I found Emery's comments yesterday very weird. I didn't understand them at all about we're not in a race for top 5. I don't know what he was talking about there. I really don't.
I think it might be a slight translation issue. So when he was talking about contenders for top 5, I think he meant almost like favourites for top 5. I think it's a slightly different sort of take on it. I think what I would say just quickly is I just want to go on to talk about Crystal Palace and sort of come back to Villa as well. And I think Leicester winning the Premier League 10 years ago, at the time it was hailed as, oh, this fairy tale story and everything else. Oh, this is amazing for football. I said it back then. I think it was one of the worst things that could have happened for the Premier League. The rules that have come in subsequently in terms of financial fair play, PSR, now the new squad cost ratios that are going to be coming in, it is so difficult for these teams to challenge these top 5 or 6 teams. And I just feel sorry for Palace fans today. They've had the best team they've ever seen. And obviously it was stripped of Eze in the summer. Obviously Glasner's going to go. Guerhy's going. Wharton will be off. And it's not a case of them starting from scratch again, but they may as well be. And it just feels very wrong that you have a team like Palace who have put together a squad and team who was giving all the big boys nightmares is, literally dismantled. And why? Because of effectively financial fair play. And you see it with Villa. Villa sort of challenge for Champions League places. And, here Villa are selling Marlon to try and see what sort of deal they can do this winter. When you have City splashing out another 65 million on Semenyo, another 20 million on Guerhy, all these other, having spent, 300 or 400 million in the last 12 months, when teams like Villa haven't, having to just sell player after player. It's football is really close to it. I mean, we've talked about European Super Leagues and things like that, but it isn't far off, being a properly closed shop. And I don't see how that's good for football.
Yeah, I agree with you. I can see a European Super League at some point.
Let's talk about Frank first. So obviously we've talked on this pod about we've talked about the trio originally of Slot, Frank, and Amarin, and how we thought they were all destined for the chop. 2 down, 1 to go. We obviously also talked about Maresca. And I don't quite know how he's still in a job. I mean, it literally hanging on. I wouldn't be surprised if whilst we were doing this pod that he gets booted.
Yeah, absolute shocker losing at home to relegation West Ham 2-1 on Saturday. Really bad. I've only seen the highlights, but that's really bad. I thought after they appointed Heitinger that they would. And buying Conor Gallagher, that's a sign of we're going to back you now, and we'll reevaluate in the summer to what's going on. But his position's almost untenable. It really is, and there's got to be a couple of those board members there who are going, hang on a minute here. We're way behind top 4 or 5. Well, it will be top 5. We're a bit of a laughing stock. The fans clearly have lost him. The players might have lost him as well. Yeah, they play Dortmund tomorrow, so I'd be surprised if he goes today just because. But it wouldn't surprise me as well, though. On the other hand, I just can't. I think his job's untenable there, really, now. I think sometimes you got to admit, 7 months in, hasn't worked out, let's go a different direction. I think.
So I'd say a couple of things. So one, I said last week about Gallagher. I think it wasn't necessarily an endorsement of Frank. I think it's just, those within the club will be signing those players. I think the days of managers having like crazy amounts of say, and they may have the final decision, but things have changed a little bit in terms of recruitment, in terms of a manager staying on. I did see that game, and what was interesting was West Ham were really unfortunate not to increase their lead. They were 1-0 up. They could have gone, they missed some pretty decent chances to add another. And, Spurs were lucky to go in at half-time, only 1-0 down. But again, I always touch on it, fine margins in that game. And Spurs could easily have won that game in that second half. And the narrative would be completely different.
Yeah, but even winning the game doesn't change the performance levels there. I feel like he's, as I said, untenable position there. Just had a look. He is still in a job at 10:30 on a Monday morning when we're recording this.
So, yeah, he will go. It's just a question of when. Slot. Talk me through Slot, James.
Cut and paste, rinse and repeat. Terrible performance, terrible result. Out of his depth. See you later, please. It's nonsense, this 10-game unbeaten run in Premier League. They've won, 2 games or 4 games or something? First time since 1980, I think they've not beaten a promoted side at home at Anfield in the league the following season, obviously. Yeah, shocker again. They've got no game plan. They've got no tactics. They've got no structure of play. It's just literally give the ball to Wirtz at the moment. Another great finish by him. And hope for the best. A very, very soft penalty missed by Szoboszlai. Before Wirtz scored, yeah, it's disappointing. It's boring football as well. It's negative football. It's football not to lose. And then when you only go 1 up, Burnley get the equaliser, a really good finish by Marcus Edwards. And then Liverpool didn't really do anything. Slot didn't make any changes. Kept his 2 sons on in Gakpo and Gravenberch until they had to take him off. And then with 5 minutes to go, chucked on Chiesa, who's not good enough, but anyway. Yeah, I think they're just waiting now, as we talked about it before, until they can get their coach they want in. It's quite telling that they didn't really make a play for Semenyo, didn't really make a play for Mark Gay in January, considering...
I just think they wanted to go to big clubs, James.
So, yeah, he's just... I think the majority of the fans, more booing at Anfield. You hardly hear booing at Anfield, and it's been twice this season, if not 3 times. It's been downright poor. The football's boring. As you say all the time, it's an entertainment sport. And he's just trying to play football, not to lose. I could go on, but I'm not going to. My thoughts are out there. He's way out of his depth.
Many worse title defences, James?
Yeah, Leicester City.
Well, let's say you follow them down into the Championship.
The thing is, Liverpool, I go over it time and time again, on and off the pod. Liverpool have got some good players. And when everyone's playing badly behind the odd person at the moment, and Wirtz is playing well, it's not the players, it's the manager, or the coach, head coach. Anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, another player under...
I think we saw with, Amorim, Manchester United, and the performance they put in, that sometimes it is the coach. And I'm convinced that Tottenham have obviously got a lot of injuries, but that team that they're putting out should be doing a lot better than it is.
Yep. How much money would you put on a coach? I remember having this discussion, didn't we, with one of our mates, 12, 18 months ago? I think we were only playing golf in Scotland, and he was basically saying he doesn't believe that coach has that much influence on the game. And we were like, disagree more kind of thing. It was like, I think they're the 12th man. I really do. I think if you get a good coach, as we've seen.
I think certain managers are just ridiculously important. So, I mean, I only have to look as far as Emery to see what he's done at Villa. Taking a team from relegation to perennial Champions League contenders with, yes, they have a high wage bill, but they don't, they're not spending anything on transfers. It's hugely important.
Yeah, I think, man, but I think there's going to be, we talked about it on the pod last Friday, there's a lot of managers coming up in the summer that are available, but there's a lot of big clubs who will need new managers, stroke coaches.
I wonder where Eddie Howe will be in the summer, James. Newcastle drew 0-0 away at Wolves. Howe actually has some interesting parallels to Emery at Villa in his time at Newcastle, in that he took over Newcastle when they were struggling really badly. He kept them up, got them into Champions League. Obviously, they've won the Carabao Cup, but they probably haven't been quite as consistent in the league. They're not miles away in the league this season. Obviously they made the semi-finals of Carabao Cup. They're in the Champions League. Something looks pretty amiss at Newcastle. It might, it feels like it's a little bit more than just recruitment, but the recruitment has been horrendous.
Yeah, they panicked in the summer. Visa, Alanga, those two. Walter. Yeah.
Ramsey.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Malik Thor looks a half-decent defender, given that kind of thing. And if they get Botman anywhere back to 2 years ago levels, then yeah. But their away performances and didn't have a shot on target to the 87th minute. Anthony Gordon, 368 days without an open play goal. He shouldn't be starting, by the way. There's no way he should be starting ahead of Harvey Barnes on the left-hand side. Harvey Barnes is wasted on the right. Yeah.
What would worry me a little bit if I was Newcastle was Howe's comments yesterday. So he was very much in the case, I thought we deserved to win and things like this. And it's like, no, I'm not sure you did. Yes, you created, the odd chance here and there and stuff, but it's a bit right.
They're not big chances.
Well, they're not big chances. And, it's the same with Arsenal away at Forest. Is if you're the big team going away to, one of the teams in the bottom four, you should be creating an awful lot more than those two teams did relatively. And I don't know, I thought Newcastle were poor. They've got an incredibly tough run coming up. Obviously, they've got PSV midweek. They've then got Villa next weekend. But after that, things get very interesting for them with a horrendous schedule of, I think, 5 out of 6 games away from home, including the likes of Paris Saint-Germain, all sorts of, very tricky fixtures. So it's going to be very, it felt like it was a really important game for them to win against Wolves. And they're going to do well to survive February without damaging their season.
And we know those owners won't take not being fourth to fifth. Don't care who they are. They want to succeed.
Well, they shouldn't in a season where those teams in that top 4 or 5 battle have been poor. Liverpool have obviously been really poor. Chelsea have been poor.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Chelsea. Obviously, they had the 2-0 win against Brentford. Very fortunate, I think. I think it was very unconvincing performance. Pedro's goal, brilliant finish. It was poor defending from Brentford. Obviously, a blocked clearance, fell straight into his path. Brilliant finish. Brentford missed some great chances to, equalise in that game. And then obviously Palmer got the late penalty after a howler from Kelleher. One of the telling things in that game was there's lots of social media footage at the end of Palmer sat on the pitch. He doesn't look fit. He was sort of holding his groin, and I just wonder how much he's actually going to play in the next few weeks, which will obviously be a big miss for Chelsea, as he's one of their obviously star players.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford will be kicking themselves not taking anything from that game, the amount of chances they had. But yeah, Palmer, he just hasn't been fit for a long time, really. Wonder if it's still not growing pains, but he didn't play much football. And then in the last 2 years, he's played a lot of football. They obviously played in the Club World Cup. They had no summer off. They had a 2-week break. It's no surprise, really, that some of these Chelsea players are starting to break down when they had no bodies. Just, you can't continue to play football for 2 years back to back, really, with what? I know he's got injured, but 6 weeks holiday with doing nothing. It's body's not designed to continue to play that amount of time at that high level intensity. It just isn't.
So I definitely think there's lots of questions about Rossinha. That performance doesn't answer them. It was a big win for Chelsea in terms of their Champions League aspirations, but bigger tests await. Although obviously not in midweek as they play Pathos. I do just want to touch on the refereeing, and we've obviously touched on the Garner decision, which was a terrible one. The Aina one, I think, Darlow was obviously talk about the handball with Scarlett in the West Ham Tottenham game. I don't personally think that was a handball, but if it had been given, it would have been one of the softest penalties ever. It wasn't given, which I think was the right decision. Obviously, Gakpo got incredibly soft penalty for Liverpool, and as you say, it's that inconsistency when you see some of these decisions given. The other one was Wilson for Fulham against Leeds. So I don't know if you saw this, but the Leeds player had broken down the wing, and Wilson knew that he couldn't get to the player, and he's absolutely clattered the player about 3 yards behind the ball. It's such a deliberate foul. And I don't remember when Lewis Skelly got sent off against Wolves for Arsenal. And it was obviously said it should only have been a yellow. This was, for me, a much worse example than that. It was just so blatant, and it basically almost assaulted the Leeds winger, and it's obviously given us a yellow card. I don't see how you see some of the red cards that get given in the Premier League. Like they went back and did obviously Simons for the tackle down the back of the calf, a few weeks ago, and that tackle from Wilson is no worse than Simons' one. I don't really understand again the inconsistencies between them.
Yeah, I've not seen that. I have to look at that. But yeah, I'd like to bring a sin bin into football, but that's a long way away from happening, I think. That's a classic example of what you said there of a 10, 15-minute sin bin kind of thing. More than a yellow card, but probably slightly underneath the red.
Obviously, a good win again for Sunderland. So obviously, Crystal Palace had the news before the game that Glasner's off, Gurhey's off. One interesting thing about that game was that Glasner didn't make any substitutions in the game. Essentially said afterwards that his bench wasn't worthy of, there was no one on his bench worthy of bringing on. Properly threw his toys out the pram. I thought his comments were quite interesting and about how, everyone's let, the board have let everyone down and all this sort of stuff. And yet he's the one who wouldn't sign a new contract. He decided, obviously, months ago that he was going to leave. I find his comments just, obviously there's a desperate plea to get sacked now, but it was also just so hypocritical. And and proper toys out the pram stuff. But fair play to Sunderland for winning again. It really is impressive what they're doing. Lefay scores again. Broby scores again. Another nice, two nice finishes. Just amazing to see, really.
Yeah. Can we talk about AFCON?
Wild.
Absolute. Oh my gosh, carnage yesterday in the final. I mean, the third and fourth playoff obviously went to penalties as well. But yesterday, the final, Morocco versus Senegal. So there's been talk all tournament about how Morocco have been trying to end their 50-year wait to win AFCON, and how the referees have been giving them decisions that probably shouldn't have been given, hometown advantage, etc., etc. But yesterday, the final was pretty drab affair, but I kind of knew that was going to happen. It's too much at stake. A lot easier to defend at that level than score goals, unless someone scores a worldie. Senegal score a perfectly good goal. It's never a foul on Hakimi at the back post. Score. The referee obviously disallows it. Surprise, surprise. Senegal go absolutely bananas, quite rightly. The coach goes bananas. Morocco go up the other end, and in the 98th minute or something like 94th or 90th, whatever it is, literally right at the end of the game, the most ridiculous decision ever from VAR to give the penalty, and the referee's obviously given it, told to give it. It's not even soft. It's just not a penalty. Senegal are fuming at this point. It's comical because the players come on, the subs come on, and just it's kicking off. And then eventually, after 10, 12 minutes, the Senegal coach, Thor, just decides, no, lads, we're off. Let's go in the change rooms. We're not having this. We know it's completely bent. The only person to stay out was Sadio Mane. After three or four minutes talking, he runs back into change rooms, gets all the players back out onto the pitch. So they've obviously decided, not a great look. They've come out and apologised. But anyway, so it's now the 117 minutes on the clock, 17 minutes after the penalty's been awarded. Eduardo Mendy, the ex-Chelsea lad, in goal for Senegal. Brahim Diaz, the top goal scorer, he's got 5 goals. The Real Madrid lad steps up, Panenkas it. Mendy just stands there, catches it, and the referee then blows straight away. So there's no blows it. So it would be the last kick of the game. And I'm thinking, how am I here? Have they done a deal where they've just gone, oh yeah, we'll just do this. You just stand in the middle. And it can't have been, because I was thinking, well, if he did that and missed it on purpose, he would just whacked it high and wide or whatever like that and gone, or just passed it to the keeper. But he actually meant the Panenka. Unbelievable. Goes into extra time, and Papa Guy scores from Villarreal in the 94th minute. Brilliant finish off the bar. Senegal hold on, win their second AFCON. But yeah, the takeaway from that is walking off the pitch. There was a fracas in the change in the press conference afterwards. Senegal have come out and basically apologised and said, oh, it wasn't the right way of doing it. But I can understand why they've done it, because those two decisions are just out. I actually talked about this a couple of years ago to mates. How long before a manager just goes, take the players off? And it happened last night in one of the biggest games of the season.
Right. Let's just clarify that, James. It wasn't, say, 2 years ago, and it wasn't just a suggestion. You've said on multiple occasions they should just walk off the pitch when the bad decisions have happened.
But why not, though?
That's sport, James. You can't be doing that. I mean, it was a crazy scenes. Doesn't do Morocco's World Cup chances of holding a World Cup. I think, was it 2030 or something they're looking at? Can't be doing their chances any. Is that right? No, can't be right. Further down the line than that.
2034, 2038 or something.
Yeah, so further down the line than that. Can't do any favours, I don't think.
2030 is in Saudi, isn't it? Or 34, I can't remember anyway. The next AFCON, last bit of that, is actually next summer, by the way. Summer of 27 is the next AFCON, 18 months' time. back to the summer tournament.
Go on, James. Let's have your rant of the week.
My rant of the week is these feigning injuries from goalkeepers. Just stop it. It happens every game, basically, where the keeper goes down and the law basically says the keeper can't go off to get injury or whatever. So the keeper goes down and it's a tactic. So basically to stop the play, stop the momentum. Everyone comes over to the side, both teams. Just stop it. One way of doing it is basically to say only the captain can go to the coach. Everyone else has to stand the other side of the field. You can't have everyone come along here. Or basically say, well, if a keeper goes down and he's not injured, you have to take a player off for 3 or 4 minutes. Anyone you want to take off, so that will stop it immediately. Shouldn't be allowed just to stop the play for 3 or 4 minutes because you're getting battered or you want to change tactics. Please, it's easy fix. Don't need to wait to the end of the season. Just do it now.
I certainly think it would focus the minds if the opposition team was allowed to pick a player to be off the pitch for 2 minutes. So
it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't go down injured.
Newcastle and Eddie Howe are particularly bad for that.
Yeah.
With Pope. I've never seen Pope have so many knee injuries every game.
Yeah, but Ramsdale does it as well. So it's not like it's a clear instruction. I've seen it at lower league football as well. It's a quick way of stopping it.
I don't often have a rant in the same way you do, James. There was something that caught my eye this week that just annoys the hell out of me, and that was Arsenal corner defensively. So Forest got the corner, and obviously all the usual jostling and everything else. And then you had Odegaard was stood not far from the penalty spot. A foul gets given on the Forest player against Odegaard. Odegaard's obviously fallen in a heap, diving. The referee gives a free kick to Arsenal. Obviously, the corner is effectively nullified. And it is the most ridiculous refereeing you can ever imagine when you think how much contact goes on in those penalty boxes when Arsenal have corners themselves. All the grappling, the pulling, the pushing, and you're penalising the Forest player. You know, you're basically just rewarding Odegaard falling in a heap. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it just smacks of a referee who hasn't got a clue what is going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've got my opinion on corners, what they should do. Talked about it briefly on the pod. I might bring it up at some other point, but not today.
Let's just touch on, obviously, transfer window, not huge amounts. Obviously, we've got Semenyo and Guehi at City. It looks like Chelsea are interested in this young lad, Xhaka. What I would say about that in Chelsea is that, you know, I find it weird when everyone talks about their centre-backs. They've got so many centre-backs at that club. They've spent so much money on over the years. And I don't know. I just find it absolutely ridiculous. They're going to go and drop another £60 million on another centre-back. I think if I was one of the other teams, I'd try and get Achiampong out of Chelsea. I think he looks quite useful. I think because Chelsea will have to sell at some point in terms of UEFA considerations. It looks like Mateta might well leave Palace as well. And Juve are interested. Obviously, 28 years old. I don't think, he wants to go. I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a Premier League team might come in for him as well. Wouldn't be a huge surprise. But it doesn't look like crazy amounts of business just yet outside of the sort of City, Guehi, Semenyo stuff.
No, we've got another 12 days, haven't we, until closes the window here. Just quickly on other European football, La Liga, Barcelona lost last night to Sociedad 2-1. Rashford scored, but they lost to now only 1 point clear of Madrid, who beat Levante on Saturday afternoon. 2 second-half goals from Mbappe and Raul Asensio gives Arbeloa his first victory there. Atletico Madrid won 1-0. So Barcelona on top was 49 and Madrid 48. PSG beat Lille 3-0. Dembele got 2, Barcola 1. They're top 2 points ahead of Lyon. Marseille are third on 32, so quite a big gap between second and third there. Munich continued on their merry way in Germany. It was a 5-1 win at Leipzig. Kane scored, Elise scored. He got 3 assists. And Jamal Musiala came back from his injury after Club World Cup from an 87th minute substitution. So he's a big player second half of the season for the Champions League for them. They've obviously got the Bundesliga wrapped up. They're 11 points clear of Dortmund. Scottish Cup, Hearts lost on penalties to Falkirk, so they can now concentrate fully on winning that league. Celtic, Rangers and Aberdeen all won. Fourth round draw was a Celtic played Dundee, Rangers played Stranraer, someone like that. And Serie A, AC Milan won 1-0 at Udinese. Lecce, sorry. Your favourite player, the ex-West Ham lad, Nicholas Fulcrum scored.
Fulcrum.
Have I been up? Fulcrum scored. Found his level. Yeah. Garbage footballer. Napoli and Roma won. Inter won 1-0 away at Udinese. So Inter still 3 points clear of AC Milan. And your Roma lad, Daniel Marlon, scored as well, I saw. That's
yes, James, very good. Obviously, match tonight, Brighton, Bournemouth. Quite looking forward to this one, actually. It's going to be interesting as both teams will go for it. There's going to be no holding back in this particular fixture. I think it's always interesting. There hasn't been a draw in the last 10 times these two teams have met. It just feels like a game with lots of goals. I don't know how good Bournemouth are at the moment, particularly without Semenyo and Cliver out injured. Defensively, Bournemouth look a real mess, to be honest, still. I do think Senesi is in danger of being one of the most overrated defenders I've ever seen. He appears quite high up in some of the various stats categories. He's obviously a free agent in the summer. I see so many people talking about him as if he's, a top 5 defender in the world. He has played pretty much every game, and Bournemouth have been absolutely horrendous defensively. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, that would be goals in that game tonight, I fear, yeah.
So one interesting thing with that game is Minter looks like he'll be back after dead leg. Mitoma should be around to start as well. It's whether they go Mitoma, Minter. They haven't played together for so long because of various injuries. They've Belaber's back in the middle of midfield as well. It's going to be, when Brighton have a full strength team out, proper outfit.
Yeah, 8 o'clock tonight, UK time.
So obviously this week we have European football, Champions League. Manchester City have to go away to Bodo Glimt. City are currently in 4th place in the table. Bodo Glimt miles down. City are only 1 point clear in the sort of top 8. So they need probably at least another 4 points, I would suggest, from their 2 games. They've got Galatasaray at home to come. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of team they're able to even put out in this game. I believe Semenyo misses out because obviously he can't be registered. I think Foden may well have a broken hand. All sorts of players missing for them.
Bernardo Silva, he's out, suspended. He got a nice little yellow card before Christmas. Didn't fancy the 4-hour flight up to Norway. They're probably on a flight now. So Bodo Glimt haven't played a game since they played Dortmund on the 10th of December. Their last game in the league was the 30th of November. So they've just been playing friendlies, obviously, because their season's finished up in Norway. So artificial pitch as well. As you say, those few injuries for Man City as well. Their third game in 6 days or a week. Third game in a week, isn't it? Kind of thing. They played Newcastle last Tuesday, obviously the Manchester derby. Long travel. as they say, who are they going to play? Kind of thing. They're struggling for numbers. A couple of kids might have to, definitely be on the bench.
So we saw Bodo Glimt against. They played Tottenham earlier this season. Tottenham were pretty fortunate to get a 2-2 draw there. They were 2-0 down and they equalised with a late own goal. We saw them twice against Tottenham semi-finals Europa League last year. I mean, they're not great. Let's not be around the bush. They are not great. But
yeah, they're 32nd. They haven't won a game in 6 this year in Champions League.
They're not brilliant. But City is the last game they wanted, really. Another interesting one, Inter Milan, Arsenal. Arsenal are obviously top of the group at the moment. There are incentives for finishing in the top 2. But if I was Arsenal, I really wouldn't be that worried about that. I think it's a great opportunity to rest players. They've got Manchester United at the weekend. They have this deep squad. Use it. The likes of Norgard should be coming in. Eze, Madueke, all these players should be playing. The likes of Rice, of Mendy, give them a break. It doesn't. If they lose this game, it really doesn't matter. They're going to finish in the top 8, and that's all that really matters at this stage.
Yeah, I think they need to make some changes. I think Havertz needs to play. Jesus probably needs to play. Well, Saka didn't play. Came on, didn't he, at the weekend? Norgard has to start playing. He's played 30 minutes of Premier League football. Start playing him. Cost you 10-12 million pounds in the summer. He's an experienced. He's not like a kid. He's an experienced international player. He's 32 years old. Start playing him. Yeah, I mean, it is a tough place to go into. Obviously, top in Serie A. They don't lose many games at home. I know Liverpool went there and got an 85th minute penalty to beat them 1-0, but they have got some. They're an old side, obviously, Inter as well, but they know how to play at home. They played at 3-5-2. Bastoni, be interested to see how he gets on, because I do really rate him as that left-sided centre-back. He'll be one in the summer where I think a few clubs will be interested in him. I can't. Well, he's Italian, so he might stay there, but no, if I'm Man City or even Liverpool, you'd be going, how much? But he could cost 70-80 million euros. So it is a tough game. But do you think Arteta will rotate or not?
I mean, he has a tendency not to, but there's a level of pride with him in terms of finishing top of this group, which, I mean, the top 2 just gives you home advantage all the way, guaranteed home advantage all the way through in the second leg. I think Arsenal they've got so many games on their plate in terms of Carabao Cup semi-finals, everything else. They can have the league wrapped up by the time the Champions League comes back around in March.
Yeah, they play Carriat at home on the 28th. So they're basically, that's when they will rotate. So maybe he's thinking, I'll actually go to Inter, win the game, finish top, and then that game at home I can play.
Yeah, but it's not that easy just to go to Inter and winning that game.
No, exactly. It is a tough game. Yeah. Talking of them, by the way, they play tomorrow. There's a game tomorrow afternoon, 3:30, Harriet versus Club Brugge, 3:30 UK time, because of where it is placed in Azerbaijan, isn't it? They're playing. So, nice quick trip for Club Brugge there. So, yeah.
So we've got Tottenham, Dortmund. Obviously, lots of stuff about Frank, whether he'll be there or not. Tottenham currently in 11th place. They do have a chance to finish in those top 8. I think it will need 2 wins. They're away at Frankfurt last game. These Bundesliga teams aren't brilliant outside of Bayern. But this is a really poor Tottenham team at the moment. And, Dortmund are slapped. They're in 10th place in the league at the moment. They'll fancy their chances of going to Tottenham and getting a result, to be honest, with the way Tottenham are playing. That crowd will turn on Frank pretty quickly if Dortmund make any sort of start.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Joe Bellingham plays, if Carney, the ex-Chelsea and your lad, Villa lad.
Troublemaker.
Yeah, if he plays. Emre Can, Liverpool, ex-Liverpool play. Stotterbeck, the big left-sided centre-back, he'll probably play as well. Yeah, tough game for Tottenham as well.
Probably the least interesting of the Champions League games this week is Chelsea against Pathos. Only things I'd really say about that is Chelsea are away at Palace at the weekend, so may want to think about that. Chelsea, if they win both games, outside squeak of top 8, but I feel probably unlikely. They're away at Napoli last game. Obviously Pathos are not a good team. Chelsea and Rossini should be expected to win that game comfortably. Obviously, Marseille, Liverpool. Obviously, you boys are in 9th place at the moment, just outside the top 8. Obviously, not finishing the top 8 would be fairly disastrous for you, I think.
Yeah, it would be. You have to finish top 8, really. You don't want those 2 extra games coming up in February. Yeah, in a away game, Mo Salah's back in the squad, I'd imagine. He won't start because he'll be on the bench because Slot doesn't like him anymore. Please, can they just play Szoboszlai in midfield and not play him out on the right? You just don't know what you can get with... Well, you do know what you can get with Liverpool. It's be boring football, try and be compact, play a load of midfielders, play one up front in Ekitike and try and score 1 goal and try and hang on.
Marseille, it's not the easiest place to go, as Newcastle found out. Although Newcastle did have their chances in that game. Obviously, Greenwood is, he's obviously on fire at the moment. Not an easy game, I don't think.
No, and De Zerbi's always got something up his sleeve tactically as well to see what's going on. But you kind of know what your game with Liverpool will be boring. It'll be slow. It'll be ponderous. It won't be exciting football. It'll be a drab game of football, I'd imagine. Can't be confident as a Liverpool fan going into any game of football at the moment. But yeah, they can't afford.
Your final game's against Karabag.
And just drawing at home to Burnley.
Burnley would probably give Karabag an absolute hammering.
Yeah, but say Liverpool lose at Marseille and then they play away at Bournemouth on Saturday afternoon. No, we just briefly said about Bournemouth aren't great, but you're still going Wednesday night, so you're not getting back to Liverpool till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then you've got to go down to Bournemouth on Friday afternoon. You could see Strot out of a job by Sunday, Monday next week if they lose those 2 games.
You're not that lucky, James.
I know. Anyway.
Final Champions League game is Newcastle against PSV. Obviously, PSV went to Anfield, absolutely walloped your boys 4-1. Newcastle, again, so the whole raft of English teams just outside the top 8. So Newcastle are in 12th place at the moment. The problem for Newcastle is they play Paris Saint-Germain away in that final game. Now, I guess there is a situation where Paris Saint-Germain have already qualified, can't finish in the top 2. How important is that game to them? Remains to be seen. But it's going to take a big ask for Newcastle, I think, to finish in that top 8, given the fixtures. They've obviously got Villa at the weekend, Newcastle. I do feel like plenty of these teams are running on empty a little bit at the moment. Newcastle is one of them. You obviously saw PSV. They're obviously on a very good run at the moment. I think they've won 11 of the last 12 games. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, they've got all their players back fit. Obviously, Dembele, I said earlier, got 2 at the weekend, Barcola, Kiyashvili, Dure. So, yeah, PSG. They're going to have to win Newcastle tomorrow night. No, not tomorrow night, Wednesday night, if they want to try and have any chance of going to PSG away and trying to nick a result somehow.
So a couple of Europa League games. Villa away at Fenerbahce. There was some chat about Duran being available for this. I don't think it's right. So I think the club have said he can play, but I think he's still banned by UEFA for this game. Remains to be seen. I'm sure it'll become a bigger story in the next couple of days. Obviously, Fenerbahce, not an easy place for Villa to go. Villa in third at the moment. They've got Salzburg last game of the season, last group game, which should be easy enough. I know Emery wants those top 2 places, but given the injury list Villa now have, particularly in midfield with Anana, Kamara, Barkley, McGinn, all out, Marlon having gone, Sancho was ill at the weekend, Elliott's not featuring, obviously. Guessond, who looks like a lottery winner. Villa are so short on numbers. The only thing I would say is that, Bogard played, as did Hemmings. Hemmings came on for his home Villa Park debut. Young lad, looked comfortable. Can't say much more than that. I think Villa are going to be really short of numbers ahead of that game. I would love Emery to write it off. I'm sure he won't. I'd happily just see loads of kids play and try and focus on Newcastle at the weekend.
A long way to travel as well. Getting back late again. Talk about it. It's a long way to go.
And then Forest have got Forest are away at Braga. Forest are in 11th place at the moment. Their final game is at home against Ferencváros, which isn't the easiest game in this league. It doesn't feel like it's Forest's priority at the minute. Obviously, they need to be focusing on the league. I think they'll do well to finish in the top 8. Those early games sort of cost them. But if they can sneak in there, obviously it'd be a huge bonus not having those 2 extra games.
Yeah, Braga, 5th in their respective league in Portugal. Forest should really go there and show their quality. But as you say, they've got more important things, bigger fish to fry on Sunday. And they're away at Brentford, aren't they? As you said.
Yeah, tricky game. So I think our intention is to do another sports podcast later this evening. We'll have a look at weekend's football. So we'll look at Champions League and European action on Friday, I think, with a look ahead to the weekend's football as well on Friday. Anything else, James?
No, if you've got any questions, just let us know, either here on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or on a Twitter page, Twitter handle. Let us know if you want to ask any questions to talk about, any topics you want to talk about, let us know and we'll see what we can do. But please give us some feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever.
Brilliant. Thank you, James.
Speak to you in a week. Well, speak to you later tonight. See ya. Bye-bye.